Okay, the attendees are slowly coming on. The Facebook Live is unfortunately doesn't seem to be working. No.
I'll let him know.
Yeah, the Facebook Live does not seem to be working. So.
Well, I'll do a quick, do you want me to do a quick greeting, Tito, and welcome everyone?
I think that's a great idea, please.
All right, welcome everyone. I'm Suzanne Wilson. I'm the president and CEO of the Phoenix Symphony. And thank you for joining us tonight. This is and has rapidly become our favorite Monday night tradition, where Tito, our incredibly talented music director, interviews different folks from our community to give you the inside scoop as to what's happening in our concerts right before you listen to it on the PBS broadcast. I did also want to make mention that our orchestra was proudly featured this past week in USA Today, highlighting all of the incredible initiatives on the digital front that our musicians are currently doing. It's been an extraordinary time. We're very proud of the work, and this conversation is no exception. So I, without any further ado, will turn it over to our world-class music director, Tito Muñoz. Tito, all yours. Thanks
It's so
again.
great. Absolutely. Thanks, Suzanne. And it's so great to be here with all of you. We have here a couple of really wonderful people. We have two musicians of the Phoenix Symphony who are near and dear to us. And well, I'll let them introduce themselves, but maybe we can start with Maggie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie Martinic. I am the Associate Concertmaster of your Phoenix Symphony.
And Steve.
And I'm Steve Hanusofski, and I am the Associate Principal Clarinet and Bass Clarinet of your Phoenix Symphony.
It's so great to have you both here. We're here to talk a little bit about the program that's going to be broadcast tonight on the Phoenix Symphony's normal Monday night broadcasts, and with a wonderful soloist, Augustin Hedlick, two wonderful pieces that are, one piece that's played quite often, I guess, but another piece that's not played very often, but is really, really fantastic. The Hanusofski Concerto for Orchestra, as well as the Beethoven Violin Concerto with the wonderful Augustin Hedlick. Steve, you're kind of a Rolodex of dates of things that happened with the Phoenix Symphony. When was the last time, and maybe the last two times, that the Hanusofski has been played with the Phoenix Symphony?
Well, the last time it was played before this was 2013, and before that, I'm not sure. It definitely wasn't played after 1986, which is when I got here. It's possible it might have happened before then. The previous music director who hired me was pretty adventurous, but yeah, it really, I've been here almost 35 years, and this is only the second time that we've done it. And it's a piece that, it's a really fantastic piece. And it's a piece that I actually, I'm going to go out on a limb and say every single year for about 20 years would recommend.
No kidding.
In our, every time I put a list together, so like, hey, here's something we haven't done, or here's a wish list. That was always one that was on it. And yeah, so I'm happy that I've gotten to play it twice now. So especially this most recent time, it was really, you're really in for a treat. It's a great piece and a great performance.
Steve, what year is this for you of being in the Phoenix Symphony?
So this is year 34.
Wow.
So it'll be 35 going into our next season.
Maggie, how about you?
Let's see, I have to think about this. Okay, yes, year 31. I'm catching up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm going into 32. Yeah. I started when I was 5, though. So.
Of course you did.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. We were both prodigies. Yeah.
You
That's
both,
right.
you both, yeah. Absolutely. But that's amazing. So this piece hasn't been played since both of you, other than the last time in 2013. This piece hasn't really been played very much. Steve, I know it's a favorite of yours. What about it is it that makes it so intriguing for you?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, I've always, there's the Slavic Polishness of it that I'm of Czech descent, and so I'm a big Dvorak fan, and I mean, I gravitate towards that type of folk when they do that, and this is actually from Ludoslavsky's earliest period, when he was still writing music that wasn't necessarily quoting Polish folk tunes, but was relying on it and expanding on that. And in the same way that the Bartók Concerto for Orchestra, which it has some similarities to, but I mean, it's great tunes. It's great. There's the orchestration is amazing. I mean, just the things that in that Passacaglia, just there are moments in there that just, especially when you're sitting on the stage, you feel all of the voicings, and just it's like these amazing blocks of sound that happen, and it's very tonal, so it's very approachable, I think, to everybody, and yeah. So I mean, it has an arresting start to it. As my playlist this morning was about beginning. So, but it's one of those. It just kind of starts off and
it just starts you off exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
Maggie, as far as preparing, I mean, we do a lot of contemporary music in the symphony, and I mean, this is quasi-contemporary. I mean, it's still, I think it's sort of becoming a bit of a classic as far as orchestral repertoire is concerned. But what is that preparation like for you compared to something like a Beethoven violin concerto orchestra part, or a Beethoven symphony, or something that's really, really, well-worn and played quite often by orchestras?
Yeah, great question. It is quite different. This isn't, modern in terms of a living composer, but usually what I do, if I'm not familiar with it, I do remember it from the last time, but to refamiliarize, I remember the first time opening it looked kind of daunting, and I'm like, okay, this is going to take some time. I listen to it. When it's contemporary, I do like to listen to different recordings. And with this piece in particular, I just found that it became a part of me. I grew to love it, and it's well written violinistically. Actually, it feels good to play. It's not awkward, and it really, it lies well on the violin. When you prepare for a Beethoven symphony or Mendelssohn our normal repertoire, it's different in the sense that you're revisiting old friends over and over, looking for new things, remembering passages that have to be addressed, and always, it's an enjoyable thing, but this takes special care.
Yes. And, this piece, because I when I've, done it or worked on it, it's interesting for me because I always say that you can tell if a composer is a really great musician because of the way things just flow very well. Not only the way they might feel on the instrument, that's of course how familiar they are probably with the instrument, but just that musically, there's something about it that just kind of flows, and you don't really have to say a lot. You know exactly how it should go because it just feels right. Tempos feel right, transitions feel right. But there's not really much in the way of any kind of extended technique. I mean, for the winds, I don't think there's really anything particularly egregious as far as what's written. So, but what about it makes it challenging, Steve?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I have a moment.
Maggie, you have a moment, please.
I think it kind of relates to what Maggie was talking about. I think one thing that just makes it challenging is just the fact that it's not done that much. And so it's not that there's any extended techniques in it, but I mean, you know, as a master composer that he is, I mean, he finds ways to put familiar things together, patterns in ways that you have to sort of like keep your wits about you, and there's very much something to what Maggie said about revisiting old friends, and it's also muscle memory. I mean, there are pieces I think of. I always tell my friends that are not musicians when we talk about the Nutcracker and how they over 500 times I've played that, that that's one of those pieces that I literally almost do not practice leading up to it. I get the music out the week before and it sits on the stand, and then oftentimes the day of, it depends. Sometimes I'm a little better than this, but I've played it so many times, it literally is like getting back on a bike. And I page through it and I go, da 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 da. Oh, I have to look at this, and then and you can't do that with a piece like this because it is put together very well. And it flows very well. I mean, even the things, the accelerandi, all the things that like that work very well. And it's just a matter of like the specifics of the instrument. I've played his dance preludes for clarinet and piano a lot, which is written very shortly after this, and actually was the last piece of his that was sort of written in this style. And there's nothing hard about it, but it just has it turns these corners in different ways, and you have to just keep your wits about you.
Maggie, what about you for violinistically? What challenges does it pose for you guys?
Steve mentioned before that it's so clearly written. It's transparent in the sense that everything comes out. The balance is not an issue. You don't have to overplay ever, which can be a factor sometimes. But there's one section, this is a big challenge for the first violins in particular, and it, I think, kind of can take people by surprise if you're not prepared for it or haven't heard it, because it's a section, I believe, in the Passacaglia third movement where it's really loud, everybody's playing, and slowly but surely the entire orchestra dies out, and we're left there in the stratosphere alone, you know, having to play perfectly in tune, of course, as a section and blended well and beautiful sound, and it is quite challenging technically. You can play that by yourself. You know, you think you're perfectly in tune. Of course, it's easier, but with the entire section, it is one place where we were kind of walking on eggshells. The challenge. And
it's D major, just like the violin concerto, which is funny. You know, it's all the kind of the money notes on the violin with the reverberation of the instrument and all of that. So it sort of has to be this perfect thing. Yeah, and that's an amazing. That's the first part of the last movement, and that's one of the most amazing things, where it's this bass line that just keeps going. It's over and over and over again, but all of the orchestration above it, all of the figurations that just make it such an incredible tour de force, I think. I mean, even just that one first part of it. How many times? I mean, it's only been done in Phoenix Symphony twice, but how many times have you guys have played it elsewhere? Do you know?
I haven't played it. This is only here.
Only here? Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, only here. Yeah.
Wow.
Same with me.
One of those. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It happens that way, I suppose. Yeah. Because I know both of you are very active over the summers. Maggie, I know you play at the Santa Fe Opera over the summers. And Steve, you play at the Colorado Music Festival. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, and that's, I mean, those are both quite full seasons of work, sort of mashed into one summer. Talk a little bit before we go into the Beethoven. I'm curious from both of you, you know, that kind of I want to say maybe lifestyle, but just the transition and the differences between the kind of during the year playing and preparing compared to the summertime when you're in a beautiful place, but it's still work and there's still a lot to do. And it's a lot of programs kind of mashed into 1 week usually. Maggie, what is that like for you?
It's, I mean, I'm so grateful to have had that job for so long, actually longer than I've been in Phoenix. I started in Santa Fe right out of college, and it's completely different animal, really, the opera world, and playing in the pit, playing these incredible operas. It's a high level. It is an outdoor theater, so there's some challenges that come with that too, with weather and this and that. It's a gorgeous setting. The workload is very intense, especially the first 5 weeks. We have 5 productions, and they overlap in the opening, and once all 5 are open, then we only have performances at night, but it's 6 nights a week. We have one day off. So, but that's it. It's 5 productions. Of course, they're long. Sadly, this summer we won't be going. It was supposed to be Tristan and Isolde, which we were all looking forward to so much. But it'll be hopefully next season. And yeah, the transition, there's maybe a week to 10 days in between the seasons. So it gives me a little breathing room to take a breath and on to the next thing.
Absolutely. So. Steve, how about you? As I know, the Colorado Music Festival schedule is pretty busy too.
It is pretty busy. Because we do six weeks of full orchestra concerts. So that means we have the full orchestra plays 2 concerts a week, and then we also have a chamber orchestra series, and so the full orchestra concerts usually happen on Thursday and Friday. The chamber orchestra is Sunday.
And the two orchestra concerts are the same program?
Most of the time, except for we've gotten into the habit in the last week of doing 2 different programs. This year it would have been, by the way, it would have been Augustin playing Beethoven Violin Concerto and Beethoven 5 to start the week, and then Mahler 5 to end the week within 2. So we'd be rehearsing both at the same time. And we also had a new thing this year that we were going to be doing, which was a new music week. John Adams was going to come in, and we had a whole bunch of fantastic things planned there. And that was going to be 3 different concerts over a week. It's some pretty significant repertoire. And it's tough. I mean, I find what I try to do is we get the music in advance, or we get a lot of it in advance. And I try to do as much prep as I can leading up to it. And obviously, once again, this kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier. Obviously, there are going to be pieces that I've played before, after 30-something years. And frequently, I laugh because I remember one time, I remember trying to get Das Lied von der Erde programmed here in Phoenix. And when you did it, that's when it happened. And that's right. It took that long. But by coincidence, that would have been my first performance of it, except that Colorado decided to do it the summer before. So
I see. Interesting.
So I went and there've been a couple of times that's happened, but I usually try to do as much as I can, especially Maggie can speak to this. I mean, leading up, you're going to be gone a good portion of the summer, and we have houses, getting ready to go. There's a lot of that, and I'm trying to practice. And because once you get there, it is so beautiful that there are times when you just think, oh, I really just want to be hiking now and not drilling that Dr. Atomic, But yeah, but I think it's because it's great people, and it's a lot of fun to. I feel like I have a vast musical family here, not just in Phoenix, but of all these connections and you bring
a lot of that home. I mean, every year also.
Well, exactly.
That's the thing. That's what's really, really important also, is that, having the one experience just with one orchestra, I mean, of course it's very, very important to have that, that identity, but to have same thing for me as a guest conductor. When I go and I have these experiences, we bring it home to Phoenix, so to speak. So we have Augustin Hedelick. Maggie, what do you think? What do you think of August? I know what I think.
Playing with him, this performance was really, really one of my most memorable weekends. It was just like being in another world. It was absolutely beautiful. He really took us on a journey. the minute he started playing, I was so absorbed in his, performance. It was a story. It was almost as if he were telling his life story or something, very, very personal. And of course, this is monumental concerto. It's one of those that you can't just play it. It's so transparent. It has to be perfectly in tune. It has to be the most beautiful sound. It's probably one of the most difficult in that sense, of course. And he just plays it so beautifully.
Yeah, that's like that piece. I mean, for the orchestra too, but for the violin soloist, there's nowhere to hide. It is, you look at it on the page, and it just looks like D major scales and arpeggios the whole way through, and it's anything but that simplistic. There's just so much beauty that needs to be on every note, and to have a player on his level, to not only be able to play that with as much finesse as he was able to bring, but like you said, it's a journey, and there's no question about how to play anything because he's so convincing in his interpretation and what he wants. He goes, and there's nowhere else, no other way to do it. Essentially, it's just the way he does it. It's interesting. I mean, what is it like as a wind player, Steve, when you're accompanying a string concerto, particularly something like the Beethoven Violin Concerto?
Well, as you said, this is one of those rare beasts. It's so transparent, and there's a notorious quartet in the clarinet, two clarinets, two bassoons in the second movement. That is, I mean, it's such a beautiful moment, and it is one of the hardest things in the literature.
It's amazing because it's just chords. That's all it is.
Chords.
The violin was playing this beautiful tune, and it's just chords it's like has to be like an organ, like this beautiful, like perfect,
And the tuning, the voicing can be challenging, and I mean everybody has to be sort of like just engaged, and it's definitely like walking on eggshells because all you need is one person to just not move exactly with everybody else, and it's so transparent, and so we all kind of have a moment leading up to that but when it works, it's amazing. And that there's the wind writing is so wonderful in that piece. I mean, it's so I mean, I can't even. It's hard to put it into words what it is that makes it so special, because as you pointed out, when you look at it on the page, when you look at your part, it does not look as, I'm not going to say formidable because that sounds negative to me, but it's a wonderful challenge. It's every time you play that piece, and especially, but I think playing it with someone like Augustin, it brings out the best that's in all of us when you're responding to that kind of playing, and it makes you want to be at the top of your game, but it also, when you're playing with someone who has the finesse and is so in control, but letting the music he knows exactly what he wants to do, but just the music is flowing out of him. It's so much easier to do these difficult things with that, because that's there's no question with that.
Right.
So
well, I always think about like a trajectory. I mean, if you use like a sports analogy, if you have like a batter who hits a ball into the outfield, you see exactly where that ball is going to go, and a great catcher will just know exactly where to catch it. And I feel like that's with a great musician, a great soloist like him. Every phrase is exactly, every note is exactly like that, because there's just something about the way they play those everything that just. There's an ease, and especially that section that you talked about, because to most listeners, they would not think anything of it, because it's literally just this easy, simple tune, and then these just like nothing. But it's like the hardest thing for the winds, for the clarinets and the bassoons, to be able to play to play that perfectly and to know exactly where those things are. Maggie, what you've played the concerto before as a soloist?
Actually, I've only had the privilege of studying it for many years. I mean, actually, I use it for technique too, because, you know, it's the most dauntingly beautiful scales and arpeggios ever written.
Yes.
I have never had the opportunity to perform it with an orchestra. But, you know, the entire work, the first movement being so lyrical, the second is serene and hymn-like, really beautiful. The third movement is just a celebration. It's full of life. And that's why also it is kind of a journey. But one thing, the very opening of this has a very long tutti. And
Yes.
the violin, for the soloist, you know, they have to stand there and just wait. It's one of the longest where the orchestra's just playing. And then you come in on these octaves, 7 octaves in a row that have to be perfect in tune, pretty much alone. And, you know, rising to the melody, it's one of the hardest things to do, especially after standing there just waiting.
Right.
So
And it's like all of the anticipation and as much time as there could be to get nervous. It like Beethoven gives you all that time.
Well, I studied for a while with Ruggero Ricci, one of the greatest violinists of all time. And he's very funny too. And he used to say this all the time. He says, you know, if I had the chance to just stand backstage while the orchestra's playing this long tutti, it's way too long, he said, and then when I start, I just walk out on stage with each octave and arrive in the center when I hit the melody. That would be perfect. And every time I play it, I think of what he said. I just thought that was a great story.
Well, a great tie to what the audience will also hear. Everybody who's listening, if you tune into the broadcast, you will also hear this incredible encore that Augustin played for us. Recuerdos Delambre by who's the composer? Actually, Tárrega. Yeah, Tárrega. And this piece, which is this beautiful, actually very beautiful and very for the guitar. It's a fairly simple tune for the guitar, but your former teacher, Ruggero Ricci, arranged it for solo violin, but he didn't really give the violinist any, he didn't make it easy for the violin, let's put it that way. Would you mind just talking about that a little bit?
Sure. It's a really wonderful piece, yes, and it obviously written for guitar. It's chords, it's all chords, the entire piece. But the way Ricci sort of edited it or suggested doing the way he did it and the way Augustin does it is a bowing of it's very fast, you know, and the bowing has 3 + 1, 3 + 1, 3 + 1, 3 + 1 the entire time, which is incredibly difficult technically.
Well, 3 + 1 all bouncing, so it's not even just it's right. Yeah, it's not, they're not connected. They're literally, the bow has to bounce 3 notes and up 1 bow, and
yeah. He does it so perfectly, you can't even tell. You wouldn't know he's doing it. I was just watching, you know. It's really amazing.
I think everybody, because it's literally like walking on a tightrope, because it's so delicate, it's so exposed, and it's just this amazing thing.
And he makes it sound easy.
Yes, absolutely.
So easy.
Yeah. Well, we have only a minute left, so I'm gonna. Well, 30 minutes always goes by so fast. So thank you both for being here. Those of you who will want to listen in about a minute on KBAQ, kbaq.org, or on KBAQ on the radio. And thank you both for being a part of this. And I miss you guys. I look forward to seeing you guys soon, hopefully, and to make music again. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Hope to see everyone again soon.
Yes. Take care, everybody. Be safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.